evening with you, and I really want to begin by thanking each and every one of you for the tireless work you do to support those who are vulnerable, those who need us, and those who have needed you when government has failed. And I know that many of you have been generous with your time, with your money, and have made personal sacrifices to do what you do. And I just want to recognize that. I got involved when the Ethiopian Association was really ringing the alarm bells about the refugee crisis in our city. And it really shouldn't take a refugee camp forming in downtown Toronto to get people's attention. But ultimately, we needed that. And Mesrat mentioned that my friend Bruce Davis, who's very wonderfully just sitting there in the blue shirt there, but I am calling him out. Bruce was calling and texting everyone and anyone he knew who was anywhere close to power to just pay attention to a crisis that no one was talking about at all. And Mesrat and a number of her peers and refugee claimants arrived at City Hall. You literally crashed a council meeting with nothing about refugees on the agenda, sitting there, and you were not going to leave until somebody noticed you. And it worked. I've always believed that the role of government is to be a vehicle and for community to be the driver. And in this case, you drove that vehicle. And I was happy to work with you on a motion. And we got it onto the agenda. But I believe that at that moment, the reason that it wasn't heard well is because the leadership and the majority of council did not understand both its import, but also the fact that, we have a long history, and I've learned this, we have a long history of, being there for communities, often coming from Europe, the Ukrainians who merit our support, but shouldn't be exclusively supported. And we give very little regard to people of color, people coming from Africa. And, when we are putting one community up in hotels, we shouldn't be leaving another one on the streets. So there's a lot that I still don't know, and there's a lot that I want to continue learning from each of you. You know much more than I do. You work on the ground. But what I do know are a few simple things, and I'll conclude with these thoughts. What I do know is that we have a broken and dysfunctional funding framework and governance framework when it comes to supporting people that needs to be fixed. I do know that we have systemic racism that needs to be addressed in our policy making. I do recognize that we have lots of land. We've got parking lots. We've got old facilities that we could do more with, along with building affordable housing. That if we were wise and listened to people who know more than us and didn't kind of see the barriers that are in the bubble of City Hall, we could use those lands better. I also know that if you get enough people who are of good faith, who want to come around a table or a circle like this, who only just want to figure out solutions, there is a yes. There is a solution. There is a way that we can address this if we work collectively together. But you need everybody there, rather than fighting over whose responsibility it is, as the city and the federal government and the province does. It should be about that it's our responsibility. These are our people. And that we need to work together to achieve a common goal, which is supporting and serving humanity together.
Yes.
So the takeaway for me is that when I hear comments about the shelter standards get in the way, I want to meet with you and I want to understand what you think we need to reform to get ourselves out of the way of progress. And when I hear that there are people who want to work with, whether it be myself or Mayor Chow, I will go to Mayor Chow and suggest we need to actually bring people together and actually work together as a team so that we can solve this crisis. Thank you very much.
It takes really a gut, stamina to stand alone and to be a forefronter Here you remind me of Emozola from the 19th century, who wrote an open letter, J'accuse, standing up by himself against the whole country. So we really appreciate your strength and stamina. Thank you. So our next guest speaker is Judge SISAY WALDEMICHAEL. He will be speaking about this housing crisis vis-a-vis the criminality.
Hi everyone, my name is SISAY. I'm from Ontario Court of Justice. My subject to discuss today is about housing crisis and criminality. Before we go there, and for counsel of benefit of teaching, housing is an international law of right. We don't have to get together today here. It is our right to have housing. Now, aside from the international law, the Canadian Constitution allows anyone and everyone to be treated equal. You spoke about Ukrainians and others, and that discussion, even though the Canadian government, the city and the province have done a great job about handling Ukrainians, they did a terrible job of handling Africans. Absolutely. So the discussion ought to be of the right to be treated equal versus whose responsibility is to provide X, Y, Z. We should not be sitting here to discuss who should provide X, Y, Z. We should be discussing, does our right, God-given right, being provided by those who hold power today? That's what the question should be. Courts have to make some serious contribution in really defining an issue of criminality based on housing issues. We have people coming to court to defend themselves on an issue of break and enter on an abandoned building, charged criminally. What is the irony? Can you see the irony here? The man or the woman walked into the abandoned building because she wanted to have shelter. Who cares about that building except the system, the so-called system that we designed to victimize by calling them criminals? So the court system has to really look into it. And I'm glad you mentioned the Ethiopian refugees. You're looking at one. You're looking at one Ethiopian refugee that has had no housing for many, many years. Homeless, distressed, family missing, all this new country, new language. The idea of looking at a refugee as some kind of a paraffin is a serious mistake to our system. Whether it's a legal system or social system, it's a serious mistake. So I can speak on behalf of the Ethiopian refugees that nobody speaks about. Thank you, Master, for doing a great job, by the way. Absolutely. That those people that came to this country are engineers, medical doctors, electrical engineers, civil engineers. Listen, you get the crop of the crop, the best of the best. Give them housing, you'll see where they will be. So our advocacy should be, A, decriminalize this issue of break and enter on